Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire, and I'm speaking to you from Canada, from Quebec. It is quite an honor today to be able to commemorate, to celebrate, to acknowledge, and ultimately bid farewell to Judge Robert Croll for his work with the Dutch National Fund for Peace, Freedom, and Veterans Care. Well done indeed, Judge Croll, and I'm honored to be able to be part of this celebration of your work. I was born in June of 1946 in a little village called Denenkamp in the northeast of Holland. To my mom, a Dutch war bride, my grandfather worked as an engineer at Philips in Eindhoven. And my dad, who fought through Holland and spent 6 years overseas during World War II, was involved with the building of Bailey bridges throughout the campaign. He had joined the army in 1929, so he was a professional soldier, and the war was a continuum of his profession, of course. But it did also affect him significantly and the family upon his return to Canada. I have spent 36 years in the army and also served overseas and served in war zones as peace, and the effects of that have been also significant through PTSD and the impact it has had on my life, the family, and even the desire to continue to live and work and to become reasonably effective in my society. My two sons have served and overseas, and they have lived these traumas of civil wars and imploding nations and failing states through peacekeeping and the complexity and ambiguity of it, of course. Judge Croll and I also have a link because of his work on the justice system in Rwanda, him trying to build that credibility to be able to judge their own and to bring justice and hopefully a certain conclusion to the people of the effects of that war on them. I was there before, during, and near the first weeks after the war and the genocide in Rwanda, civil war, the most ruthless, the most disgusting means of resolving conflicts. That civil war was simply two ethnic groups and one wanting to maintain power, and it decided to simply wipe out 1.2 million human beings and nearly succeeded in doing so over the period of 100 days, where over 800,000 plus were destroyed, and others of their own ethnicity who were sympathetic and who were compassionate and even married into the other ethnic group, they also suffered, and many died. That genocide did not end because of the international community's commitment to wanting to save Rwandans, Black Africans. Did not end because of our self-interest in what happens to people who are massively abused by human rights. It ended because the Rwandans themselves ultimately were able to stop it. And my little force of the UN abandoned, not reinforced. Many pulled out. No nation wanting to give us anything to advance peace and try to stop the slaughter. Well, about 32,000 may have been saved. But what is that in comparison to those that are lost? The mission did not achieve its aim of assisting them in advancing peace. On the contrary, it stood there impotent by the rules and by the implications that the UN was using in those days and the imposition of the world powers on not letting it do its job to not only stop conflicts, but to prevent them from happening in the first place. But ladies and gentlemen, there's another dimension to this that I wish to raise because of particularly the work of Judge Robert Croll with veterans. And that is the fact that the genocide really never has ended. The war has never really sort of terminated for those of us who have served in accomplishing our duties during those conflicts. Wars politically end, but they don't end in the minds of those who have been injured by operational stress injuries in these incredibly complex and ambiguous moral dilemmas, ethical dilemmas of life and death as people attempt not only to destroy each other, but to make people suffer, mutilate, and humiliate as they destroy them. We, as veterans, do not remember what has happened. They're not memories for us. We relive them, digitally clear and in slow motion. And they appear when a sound, a smell, a conversation, a word, a bad day. Regenerate, bring back, open up a box in our mind, and we are back in the midst of the war. So war ends, yes, technically, but it never ends in the minds of those who serve, those in the front lines. And humanitarians are suffering so much similarly. But when you're committed to peace and given a mandate to try to establish it and cannot do so and fail in achieving that because of so many factors involved, that dilemma eats away and ultimately brings you to sometimes seeing the continuum of the casualties of war. That is to say, those who suffer so much of those dilemmas and the impacts it had on them psychologically that they simply can't sustain it. They can't sustain life. They can't return to a level of normalcy. And so wars continue to take casualties after. And we keep losing those who serve with us to their own hands as the suffering and the inability to manage it goes beyond them. And the trauma that we see, that we create amongst our own, becomes so virulent that we simply cannot continue to see them suffer also. And so in this time of complexity and ambiguity, it is critical that commitment to easing those pains, to reducing the impact of those injuries, to heal those wounds through therapy, yes, through medication, absolutely. If required, take it, yes. Through peer support, often not even the family, but friends or old uncles maybe, or to help you. And through love, love of the family. Love will conquer all. And until you find that, you find it in your children, find it in your spouse, you cannot fully get above the day-to-day pain, and you keep subjecting yourself to more and more brutal attacks on your own actions, on your own way of life, and that can be quite degenerative. And so we can't leave them alone. We must continue to communicate with those veterans who are hurting. I have a nephew, a Dutch nephew, who was served with the Dutch Special Forces in Yugoslavia, in Bosnia, who still at times is really back there, and so much suffering from him and his family in trying to become reasonably accepted. And so this injury is not dishonorable. It is an honorable injury of the mind that has been affected by what we have attempted to do and what we've seen and what we live with. And we must treat it honorably and with urgency, and we must protect those around them from the impacts of that also. Families and children, spouses. So some of us commit ourselves now to other ambitions in life to attenuate that pain. Me with child soldiers around the world in reducing that trauma of facing children armed and how to answer that and how to live with that impact. But I wish to Judge Croll to enjoy the efforts he's done and to remain as sort of an elder statesman to his efforts, because we have not completely eliminated the stigma of this injury, even amongst our own, even amongst first responders now in the COVID-19 who are in the front lines of this war. We must support them. We must encourage them. We must recognize the impact it has on them and on their families and give them the support they need. And lastly, I want to say hi to my aide de camp during my tour in Rwanda, and that was Lieutenant Colonel, now Lieutenant Colonel, but just retired this couple of weeks ago, William LeCount. He was a most effective representative of your great nation, of my old nation, my old home. And so to you all, I wish you well. To you, Judge Robert Croll, well done, sir. Well done indeed. Thank you very much.